Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 31 of ENS Interviews. I'm your host, Evan15, and I'm here with Vincent, aka Zadok7.eth from the ENS Labs team. Welcome, Vincent. How are you doing today?
GM, how you doing, Evan? I like your little hold music. It's pretty cool.
Thanks, Manny. I'm doing great and really happy to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy reaching out and talking with the ENS Lab team. I think the community really enjoys like learning from you guys and just hearing all the important things going on in ENS. So really pumped for this episode. And so to start off, I always kind of ask my guests, how did you get into ENS? Maybe like is there something in your background that got you to ENS, or just anything with that story is always interesting to me.
Yeah, so part of my background is a tech background, and I come from like the Web 2, DNS world, and took a little break from tech a while. I'd heard about blockchain, had heard about Ethereum, definitely didn't hear anything about ENS yet at that time. And I caught up with a buddy on a vacation one time, and he was like, "Oh man, you gotta get into crypto, man." He was just all FOMOing, and he's kind of a degen, and I was like, it wasn't very interesting to me because I was never like I just kind of looked at cryptocurrency and blockchain as like something to do with like payments and money or like trading and stuff, and I was not really into that much. And then he kind of explained the concept of smart contracts, and I was like, it kind of blew my mind, and it took me back for a second, and all of a sudden I started like having these bursts of ideas like, oh man, you could build an app in a different way, these things called dApps. So I started just like when I got back from vacation, I kind of like jumped into it, started doing some research on Ethereum, started doing research on NFTs, and then kind of the question that came to my mind was like, what I was familiar with was like, how do you build? Is there a way to build like a decentralized like website? Like, how does that work on the blockchain? And then so I was like researching that, and I think I came across a Fleek article, which is like a kind of a tool there. I think they were actually on the ENS space about a month ago or so. It was like pretty interesting space. But they were like one of the early tools that had integrated with ENS to allow people to do just that, to where you could, build a decentralized app or decentralized website. And like it was just kind of seamless, and you would deploy like a static front end, and it like hooked to the GitHub and just kind of did everything for you. And that's kind of, I think, the first time ENS came on my radar. And then I realized, whoa, ENS is also an NFT. Okay. And then I started to realize, wow, you can give NFTs this type of utility. And from there, I jumped into the ENS Discord, listened to a lot of the spaces, how they were talking about how it works and what you can do with it. And it was just super fascinating to me. And then pretty much I joined the Discord after that. And, later, I think some months later, they announced like the govern the DAO was being launched, and a bunch of people were really trying to figure out how to do stuff and like how to set up their names and everything. So I hopped in the Discord and was like, "Here's how you do this part." And I knew just a little bit, but I knew what I did, and I helped where I could, and that's kind of like how I got involved with ENS. And then fast forward to now, like I think last November, became the community manager with Labs. And so, yeah, I mean, I just really like deep dove into ENS, checked out the podcast, tried to, looked back at the history of ENS to see like how did it start, where did it come from, and that was also another fascinating part, that it kind of came out of the the Ethereum Foundation. And it was like a little project there first, and then it got too big, and I think Nick was there at the time, and it became its own project, and then Vitalik ended up giving $1 million grant to get it off the ground and get it started, and just all that was super fascinating to me, and so that kind of kept me coming back around, made me fall in love with ENS more and more. And just I think it's a public good that the whole world can use, and it's a way to onboard people into this like wonderful technology, the blockchain, through Ethereum, and near and dear to the Ethereum Foundation's heart as well. And it's just an awesome project, and I'm just so thankful that I stumbled upon it when I did, and how I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. And no, I completely agree with the one thing you said, which is like, I think a lot of people, they hear crypto, they hear Web3, it's very much, you think of like financialization of the internet. and that's amazing. But I think smart contracts and blockchains are much more than that, and I think that's what's really cool about ENS is it really kind of gets deeper into that, goes into social, it gets into every other aspect of the internet that we use all the time today. So I think it's really
It
cool, and it's a great point.
it is, and I love preaching like the blockchain gospel almost, and ENS ties right into that. And so as I meet people and they're not familiar with the blockchain, or they ask kind of like what I do, and then you always have to combat that thing about, oh, they hear all the bad news about crypto and all this stuff. And I try to bring people back to the utility behind it and what can be built on it and how it can be built. And so it's kind of an uphill battle, but it's fulfilling to educate people, and they're fascinated by it really. And I think we're going to see more and more like crypto adoption coming, and it's just going to be a natural part of people's lives on the internet. And ENS is a super big part of that, having a decentralized identity.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think over time, as human behavior kind of gets built into like blockchain mechanics, and people like starting to build applications that are more just like blockchain in the back end. I think those two things are going to like converge, and so more users, more people start to figure out these technologies over time as it becomes more simple. And so we're just early, but it's really cool. So I would love to get into like what do you do with the ENS Labs team? I know you're the community manager, so maybe just kind of a little backstory into that for those who aren't aware of this position.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of moving parts, but it's kind of just organizing kind of with the community and labs team, to kind of figure out like, okay, what is the community saying? What would be helpful to the community to see or hear about? You'll find me co-hosting spaces with Sadaf. Shout out to her; she's in the audience listening. We just had a sync on an upcoming space, and so there's a lot of that kind of coordination to figure out what's going to be really cool for the community here, or what's the community going to be interested in. So part of that's like curating tweets, and also uplifting builders and also content creators like yourself. So when you invited me to the show, I was kind of excited about that. I'm glad you have this like little service to the community. It's a unique little niche thing to do, and that's amazing. I still do some of the support, so you can find me in Discord, and also some of the Twitter like support. We've got some amazing mods out there too, but I do a little bit of that, and that actually helps me kind of keep kind of tabs on like what the community might be facing with different things, like maybe a user experience. And then a lot of times I'll curate some of that feedback and meet with other parts of the team, whether it's like back-end developers or the front-end team, to let them know like, okay, we continue to see kind of this issue where this community member posted about this, like how can we solve this? And we sync on that. We love the feedback, and so keeping tabs on like what the community is seeing, needing, wanting is like super crucial. And that's pretty much the gist of it.
Awesome. Yeah. So that was very helpful. And so, I know you mentioned it briefly, but maybe a little bit more detail on like could we get into like the channels for ENS Labs and the DAO? How do people reach out to whether it's, you or anyone on the team? Like how do people if they have questions, where do they go? Stuff like that.
Sure. One of the cool things was when Twitter actually a couple months ago added like the verified little logo. So like everybody on the labs team has that, and their DMs are open. So no matter who they are, whether it's Luke Dev Relations, or Greg building things, or anybody really, you can see who is verified on Twitter. And so like crypto Twitter is pretty big. That's where like a lot of our audience is. That's where we get a lot of relevant things from, and so it's good to have now that signaling. Like it used to not be like that, and sometimes I would message somebody. Let's say I had like a name that I thought a project could use. I'm really kind of big into gifting and thinking of ways like that, but then it's like here's this rando that like who is this person? And so, but now it's a little easier with that. So like as a almost like a policy, I guess, but I mean I don't think it's a policy, but everybody I know on the team has their DMs open, so you can always reach us through DM on Twitter, Discord. So that was kind of like the beginning of like support. So a lot of people were used in the crypto space were used to like projects having Discord. It's kind of been shifting some now. It's not as relevant as it used to be like a couple of years ago, but that's still an avenue. We have a amazing kind of ticket system, and people ask us all the time what the ticket system is. It's a project called Helper GG. Shout out to them; they're super good. But that that allows you to open a private ticket with the mods, and then you could get get troubleshooting help there, or if you want to connect with somebody, you can do that. So those are a couple avenues for it. Also, there's the governance forums where all the governance happens. So like anything that kind of comes up with the protocol, like none of that's a surprise. Like if there's going to be like a proposal for something or a change to the way the protocol works, that's posted there, and so that's like a super great place to connect, and you connect with some of like the working group stewards that are there at the DAO. So there's like ecosystem has Limes and Slobo, super great guys, responsive. They kind of look through all the projects building on ENS. And there's public goods with like Coltron and AFSA and Eduardo. So those are also avenues to kind of reach out, not to labs because it's separate, but as far as like seeing what's up with ENS and what's going on with ENS and connecting, and the labs team is very active there on the forum. So you'll see the developers posting, like when the name wrapper was coming out, every time there was a new contract on Gurley, I think Jeff Lau would go out there and post and update the contract and just keep everybody up to date. So it's great to interact there as well. And I feel like that's kind of a underutilized resource in a lot of ways, and it's super important though. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That was great. And so I guess my next question would be, how do you like see ENS being adopted? Maybe like what are some things the community can do to further adoption? We'll love just any opinions or feedback you have from that.
Yeah. So definitely, I think participation in the DAO is super, super great. Right now, like I mentioned, there's the small grants that are going on that the working groups are hosting. So I like to see that and kind of let the community know, hey, this is going on. There's like 4 days submission for that. So that's one way, but also, it's actually diving into some of those projects, seeing what's cool and interesting, seeing who's like building what, give them a follow. If they tweet something about that they built, retweet that, and you just kind of like grow that network effect, I think, by just keeping up to date and on top of things. And I think like the small grants projects are like one really cool way to do that. And then also, of course, like, when you use ENS, like, make sure you have your primary set, your avatar, because when you're logging into dApps and different things like that, it shows you have that blockchain identity through ENS. So that's really good signaling to kind of help adoption and people to ask questions like, oh, wow, I don't see like a wallet address in this dApp that did this transaction. I see a .eth address. And just being able to see .eth everywhere is like super helpful. So the community has done a good job of a lot of that. Other things like look for projects, I would say, that are building on ENS and cheer them on. Like past couple of weeks or a week or so, you'll have noticed like Farcaster has been, I know you're a big fan of Farcaster and you're on there, and I'm on there now. I've got to make some more tweets and kind of get a little used to like posting out there too, and also on Twitter. But I've signed up, and so I saw that they had said anybody in the ENS community wants invites, like contact us, and so that's really cool. It's like cheering on a project that's important, that's cool to you, and you can like signal with them and be like, yeah, I want to do it. I want to push out a tweet. It's cool. They built on ENS. I love ENS. I have an ENS name. Let me push this out there. Let others know about it. So a lot of those things. I would also say gifting is really big. Sometimes it kind of sucks for a project to like want to build and integrate on ENS name, but like their ENS name's already gone. And so there's different ideas on that, but gifting is a really cool opportunity. I remember there's a tweet went out about Uniswap, how they have their .eth name, and I think one of the community members said, hey, I've got this other like swap's name. I want to gift it. I think they said they want to gift it. I don't think they were selling it, but I think they wanted to get that to them. And that was just really cool to see the community doing that, because I feel like that kind of helps everybody. And would increase adoption when you have these big projects, jumping on board with ENS and flexing their ENS name and building off of it now with a name wrapper. I see like a lot of subname use cases are going to kind of like go wild pretty soon. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's the ways community can help adoption is a lot of those things, staying up to date and pushing it out there and just showing your love for builders and projects and everybody using ENS.
Yeah, those were great points. And I would like to add, like, on top of what you're saying. Like, I completely agree, and especially on the like letting people know about the good protocols and applications that are utilizing ENS. Like that was such a great point by you. And so like one wallet that I've been pushing a lot is Rainbow Wallet. I think Rainbow Wallet is a great supporter of ENS. I think being able to register your domain within the wallet is such an amazing feature. And so yeah, I think that's a great point. And so I think people should do anything they can, just create content, let people know about it. I'm actually going to be interviewing Mike Demaray next week, so I'll be happy to try to get some more ENS talk out of them. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And yeah, so very cool to see different ways that the community can have an impact. I do think that's something that's really empowering. The fact that anyone can contribute. But
Yeah, and I think wider too is also at the same time, like pushing up the whole ethos of Ethereum. Like one of my most recent tweets is about Visa experimenting with ERC 4337, which is pretty cool, and that's a huge company, and it's neat just to like put that out there because it's on Ethereum, and I can definitely see a use case for ENS maybe with what they're doing one day, or getting other people to recognize like blockchain's here to stay. People are building on it. People are doing stuff with it. It's not just a trading thing or a payments thing necessarily, but it's a technology that is super useful and it's being adopted widely. And ENS is foundation to that fabric of Ethereum.
totally. Yeah. And so I guess that would be like getting into my next point. What are some of the things that you think ENS should be utilized more? Like I think one thing, for example, would be like setting your contracts. Like smart contracts should be named with ENS. I think that's a no-brainer. But like we'd love to hear your opinion. Like what are things that I think, applications could start utilizing with ENS today?
I think what's really cool about the ENS records on mainnet L1 is they're immutable records. So like for instance, it was really cool to see the news with Uniswap come out where they made their v3 deployer subname. So I think it's at v3deployer.uniswap.eth, and they set up like the different official deployment contract addresses as like custom text records, and that's super useful. You know what I mean? So I think we're going to see a lot of other projects doing that as well. Um, I think also maybe that's going to be more utilized very soon. I hope is the gasless DNS sec. So as far as I know, I think like the audit of those contracts to check and make sure like security is good on them and stuff. I'm pretty sure that's done. But imagine as far as adoption goes, and utilizing ENS, like if regular Web 2 domains, we're able to have a name on the blockchain and it uses ENS. And it's kind of a no brainer when that becomes gasless. So I think that's going to be like a use case that's going to be more and more utilized. And it's going to just really help bridge like Web 2 companies to Web 3. And like that's what we need. We need like that kind of adoption more and more and more to where, and Spotify was a big one that was recently announced like a month or two ago. So when consumers or users or anybody sees these different things happening, it's just going to increase like the utilization of ENS as well, I think. Um, Also, I think other things that could be more utilized is like subnames, as far as like off-chain resolution. So Nifty Chat just recently announced some of that, and CB.ID has been doing that a while. And if you look at my most recent post, I think Greg posted like Greg Skrill, he's on ENS Labs. He posted like a off-chain example of subnames, and that's really cool to see that happening. And so I see ENS being like more use cases with communities being able to kind of like issue subnames, and it's almost like signaling, like like if I have a subname off Nifty, Nifty.eth, and I use that, people see like, oh wow, like what's Nifty.eth, and it just helps the whole community. And maybe somebody wants to jump in and start using Nifty Chat or whatever. So anybody that's built on ENS and creating subnames, and especially like when off-chain names are able to be done, which would give the ability for it to be gasless, so you don't have to face like I think mainnet gas prices, and they've kind of been wild lately. So I see that's underutilized, and I really foresee like a ton of other projects coming on board with that like in the very near future. Once kind of the tooling is a little better. I know ENS is planning some type of like official kind of like L2 stuff. So that's coming up, I think, this year sometime. They've been working on it for a while, but all that's going to like push adoption and the utilization of ENS.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think it's really interesting seeing how you can claim an ENS domain without actually having any gas, involved. And so I think it's going to be really important to just getting people to have a human readable address no matter what. Obviously, I'm someone who's going to say, like, of course, if you have the money, please go get yourself a actual ENS top level domain and make it decent, make yourself have a decentralized identity. But I think there's something to be said for it's a spectrum, and just like how there's, obviously Ethereum's like the best. I'd call it like blockchain, but at the same time, there's all these other blockchains that interoperate and that have their different trade offs. I think that's the same thing in this, and so I don't know. I think it's really interesting to see different ways where we can onboard people, and over time, I'm sure they'll end up learning more about ENS. So yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that stuff up.
And definitely, like you mentioned earlier, too, like naming the contracts. That's a little easier now with the new reverse registrar deployment. It's kind of complex technically to explain, but it makes contracts be able to have a primary name set easier, so they can do that like after the fact, or they can do it when they deploy that contract. So that's kind of a change in the protocol that was released recently, and so I think we're going to see even more of that going on. So it's super useful to see what contract you interact with and having that named to give you that kind of confidence, you know.
Totally. I think one thing that I do sometimes is I try comparing like the blockchain to the internet and just seeing like, all right, like where are we in terms of adoption? And the fact that there's all these different addresses that aren't named period, like they're not even a subdomain, there's nothing, like that just shows we're really early, but at the same time, it also is just shows like the opportunity. I think, there's I don't know how many addresses out there, how many wallets, there is how many smart contracts, all of that can be named by ENS, and that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this community. Um,
Yeah, and I think it's also probably going to play into like IoT, Internet of Things. I mean, kind of like the idea, like you just said, is name anything, and when this can also become gasless, and or people can already name anything and use like a off-chain resolver, and that would be gasless. But we're going to see more and more of that because it's just super useful, you know.
Completely agree. I actually made a tweet about that where I said like supply chains and Internet of Things is like two no brainers for ENS long term, and there really is no alternative that can kind of you like that can there's no alternative that can be utilized for that. You can't use DNS, you can't use certain things. I think ENS where you're not where it's an open registrar, it's not monitored and authorized by ICANN. Like these are certain things that ENS is going to slowly start to show like unique aspects of it. I think that's one thing that the more I come into the community, I'm passionate about is showing like, look, ENS is not DNS. We don't need to be the same. We can provide different trade-offs, provide different things, and we're not competing. They're just two different protocols. And so I don't know. I think it's really cool thinking about some of the integrations and like you said, like Internet of Things. And so long term, it's going to be ENS and DNS and the IRL world all combining into one. So I think it's going to be really cool to see how things work out. Um,
Yeah, I think so too. And like, DNS, like I mentioned earlier, is just underutilized right now, and that's because of the gas cost in a lot of ways. But that's just going to be super big, to have like blockchain names that are based off DNS. And that was one of the special things about ENS when I first kind of like was researching it, discovering it. I was like, whoa, this is like forward compatible with DNS. They're building it in such a way that DNS can integrate in a forward way with the blockchain. Whoa, that's awesome, you know.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I think like, technology is not supposed to be PvP, This is a protocol that benefits every single person and can benefit every single organization, any entity. And that's what's so great about this is it's just a value add, like you said, DNS can be imported and it can just further benefit a domain you already own. So you don't even have to own a .eth and yet ENS can still support you. I think that's awesome. And it goes to show that ENS is even bigger than the blockchain. It's bigger than the internet. It's the it has a real world impact because like again, you can literally name Internet of Things. You can literally name supply chains with your ENS. I think that's so amazing, and I don't think that gets talked about enough. So thank you for bringing that up. And so like one of the last things I did want to go over was decentralized websites. Like, how do you see them being utilized? Where like what's the future going to be for them if you had to guess? Like, I think one thing, in my opinion, will be them like starting to mirror and saying, here's a decentralized website. Maybe you can start to register certain things that are like maybe a subdomain. You know, if my community in the Web3 world is giving out subdomains, maybe you have a decentralized website where you can claim that from. I don't know. I'm just throwing out things. I'm not the technical person, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on how you see decentralized websites being utilized.
I've thought about this quite a bit. Like, imagine you had like a decentralized, like let's say you had a car dealership or something like that, and you wanted to offer a name, a subname to people that also had car dealerships. And when you created that subname, let's say it automatically set like your decentralized website content hash, but it could be like kind of set up by the minter of that, so they could put their own inventory in there and stuff like that. So that was kind of a game changer because coming from like a Web 2.0 background, you had to have like a server. Maybe you're gonna use Google Cloud Server or like Linode or DigitalOcean, and you spin up a server and then you build the app on there, and then like if you're ever kind of like done with it, or you wanted to like give that to somebody else, it's kind of a hassle. You'd have to like transfer the hosting. You'd have to like figure out how to set it up on their other hosts. But like decentralized websites, since the front end is separated from the back end, and the content for the most part can be like gotten off IPFS or in a decentralized way, that actually can go with it. I feel like everything can go with it. So like I don't know if you probably saw it, but the Vitalik post that I think he posted, maybe I'm not sure when it was, like the last day or two, maybe last night actually, but he made a little like game type of thing like way back in the day before he was into crypto, and he just posted about it, and he used a subname off of Vitalik.eth. And you can go there right now and you can like play the little game, and it's pretty neat. But like, imagine if he was like, somebody said, "Hey, I want to like go further with this and make it better." Like, he could actually literally transfer them if he wrapped his name. I don't think he's wrapped his names, or I'm not sure yet. I haven't checked, but he could. He could issue that name of that decentralized website. He could change ownership to somebody else where it'd be immutable and trustless, and then maybe they could update the IPFS location and make upgrades to it. And so like it's just a completely different way of thinking about like decentralized websites and decentralized apps. Um, there's been some use cases that people have talked about, and I think one of the projects, I think it might be TKN.eth or something like that, are looking into like decentralized front ends, to where like a project would have like a IPFS like front end that's deployed, and somebody could go verify it. Like that's the actual current one. I saw on my radar like a project called what was it, ENS Wayback Machine. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the Wayback Machine. Like in the Web 2 world, you can like look at old archive versions of websites. Well, they have the same thing for like decentralized content records. So that was like pretty cool to see. So it's like what the blockchain can afford with this like new technology is just like the decentralization of it, to where you own your content, you own the name, you own like the content hash that it's pointed to, and you could, transfer that completely to somebody else. So I think it's kind of a game changer on what people can build and what people can do with decentralized websites. There's the first kind of early on when I came into ENS, it was like building a decentralized website was pretty hard. There wasn't like tooling for it. You had to go like, upload it to IPFS. Now, Fleek made that a little easier for you because I think you could connect your wallet through there and it would do the update for you. But kind of since then, there's been other tools that have come out, like one W3 and like Heaven's Tools by Dylan, and a bunch of really cool things that are people are building to make like deploying a decentralized website really easy. I think one W3 has like a link tree that's just kind of like automatically generated out of your ENS records. So that's super cool. So just, yeah, the way we think of decentralized websites is very, very different now that the content can be separated from the front end basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, thank you for that. And I think also one thing I've been talking about for a while now is I think, ENS and decentralized websites will really cut down on social engineering attacks. And I think crypto has made social engineering way worse because so for people who don't know, you can basically social engineer and convince and or do certain ways where you can reverse and pull someone's domain. So say like Board Yacht Club, they've sometimes gotten reverse engineered and so their domain will be taken on by some hacker and they can at a minimum they can change what's on the website and so from there they'll just start making tweets and they'll get people to send them money and so people will get scammed thinking that it's Bored Ape Yacht Club. But with decentralized websites we can ensure that if they go to that contract based on the decentralized website, no one can social engineer. There's no one, you can't go to ENS and say, hey, I'm actually the owner of this domain and yeah, here give me the ownership, transfer it somewhere else. That can't happen. And so I think social engineering is a really big problem, especially now with crypto payments where you can instantly lose your funds. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's one other thing I like.
Yeah, and to add to that is just like the immutability of the blockchain to where that site and that content is permanent. So even if let's say infrastructure in between went down, which it had happened before, it's like helping with some of the community support and stuff like that. I think one time like Infura might have went down or whatever, and so like or something with the main ENS app wasn't reachable. But the good news was anybody could go to app.ens.eth and then you can append .limo, which is like a resolver for decentralized content, and it would pull up the app. So you can do that right now too. It's actually upgraded to the V3 version as well. So they've set the content hash over to the current like V3 version of the app. And if you go to app.ens.eth.limo, you'll hit the V3 website. So that's really cool, just to have that reliability because the blockchain is decentralized in that way, and that'll always be up.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, I think, the internet, I think we've started to experience in like, web two, web one, that, the internet's going to become more confusing over time with AI. There's only going to become more hacks. There's going to be more random scenarios that weren't previously possible due to AI and just, hackers wanting to exploit. If there's free money, someone's going to want to go for it. And so I think it's great to see these immutable ways, like you said, that can help prevent a lot of the current issues in the internet. Like I came into ENS seeing it from a social media standpoint, so that's like another. There's like 100 use cases of how ENS can be utilized to help users have a better experience and to prevent a lot of the flaws of the current internet. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and also, owning the identity, like let's say you're on a regular kind of like centralized media platform, if for whatever reason, you can't access it or, you're not allowed on there anymore or something like that. Now nobody can like take that identity from you. So that's where the ENS piece comes in. And, going back to custom records, like one of the cool use cases of custom records is that project DM3, which they have like a messaging thing. So in your ENS records, you can set up like the I guess the server and like a public key, so that way like somebody that's messaging, they know it's you because it's coming from your wallet, and that way they can be sure like there's no like bot or a fake social media account that's been hacked, like an email was hacked or something, and then somebody got access, they message a family member and say, hey, like I need money, so now we can like mitigate against this by owning our own identities and controlling that, with our own like keys.
totally 100%. I'm a massive fan of like Web3 communications and how to create more transparency while at the same time more security and more user friendliness. And so I actually did interview DM3 protocol and yeah, they're doing great things. So yeah, shout out to them. Also, I know you mentioned the V3 being uploaded as a decentralized website. That's awesome. And I know that, because both you and Sadaf on the labs team are here today. I just want to say props to your team. The V3 manager is so amazing. Like the UI, I love it. So it's really great to see ENS keep improving, and over time, we're just day by day getting better and better. And so I really appreciate all the work the labs teams does. So appreciate you, and thanks Zadok, aka Vincent, for joining. Really appreciate it. Any last words or any final comments you'd like to bring up?
Just love and value the community, like you said with V3. It's not a one and done thing. We're done building it. It's evolving. We're taking user feedback, community feedback, ideas, everything, and we meet with the different teams. Staff and I go to some of those meetings and communicate with the front end team, like what could be easier for the community to understand or learn. So like we value the community, and you guys are basically ENS, So reach out to us anytime. We've got open DMs, and you can find us, and we're here for you.
Yeah, awesome work, and thanks for always doing those like office hours. I think they're great for the community, and so props to both you and Sadaf. Thank you so much for joining, Vincent. This has been awesome. Definitely go give Vincent a follow if you're not already. Check out all the stuff he's doing, and make sure to be tuning into these office hours. There's lots of knowledgeable stuff that gets talked about, that ENS and just Web3. I know they bring in a lot of cool teams as well. So again, definitely check them out. And with that being said, this has been episode 31 of ENS Interviews.